Hey, for those of you who are wondering, when do we use all this algebra stuff? This unit is for you. First, at the beginning of chapter 11.1, we're going to read the little introductory paragraph together. Your body is an amazing collection of different systems. Your cardiovascular system pumps blood throughout your body. Your skeletal system provides shape and support. And your nervous system controls communication between your senses and your brain. Your skin, including your hair and fingernails, is a system all by itself, the integumentary system, and it protects all of your body's other systems. You also have a digestive system, endocrine system, excretory system, immune system, muscular system, reproductive system, and respiratory system. Why do we call these systems systems? What do you think makes up a system? So if I'm using my background knowledge to make a little bit of sense of all these things, something that I noticed they all have in common is that to make a system, it's got a lot of things in one. It's like your cardiovascular system pumps blood throughout your entire body. Your skeletal system goes throughout your entire body. Your skin has all kinds of pieces, including your hair and your fingernails. So if I were going to use my background knowledge, I would think that a system probably has something to do with more than one, maybe, or something to do with the fact that there's a lot going on. So that can give me an idea, since the chapter name has something called system of equations. Since a system, in the way that I'm familiar with it, has to do with more than one thing, I've got a feeling that a system of equations might have something to do with more than one equation. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm going to take my best guess on for right now. Hey, if you guys were to turn the page, what I would like you to do now is I want you to pause the video and I want you to try the first part of problem 1 on your own. Today we're talking about some real life applications of when we would use equations, and it's important that instead of just copying along with the video, pause it and at least try to do this on your own first. If you need me, of course, you can always start the video and check yourself as you go along, but it really will help you learn better if you at least try to work it on your own. Hopefully you've done what I asked and you've paused the video and you've at least tried to write something for problem number 1. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It says to write an equation that represents the organization's cost to make long sleeve t-shirts. So now I'm going to go back. So an equation, of course, has an equal sign in it. I'm going to annotate as we go along. So I'm going to write something with an equal sign that represents the organization's cost in dollars. So it's probably going to have something to do with cost equals. So now let me go back through here. I'm assuming you've read the paragraph. I'm going to show you how you can actually take it apart to figure out how to write an equation. Your school's parent-teacher organization wants to sell long-sleeve t-shirts as a fundraiser. The business manager found a company that will charge $4 for each long-sleeve t-shirt and a setup fee of $160 to create the design that will be placed on each one. So this has to do with the cost of how much it's going to cost you to make these t-shirts. So it says your school's parent-teacher organization. This must be the organization that they're talking about. And I need to figure out what its cost would be. Well, and this is a really good real-life example. A lot of the time when you're making a t-shirt for some kind of a fundraiser, they charge you a setup fee. Oops, lost it there. They charge you a setup fee, and that's what they're talking about right here, this $160. And it doesn't matter how many t-shirts you buy. A lot of the time, if you go to a company and you give them a design for a t-shirt, for example, they're going to charge you to make that design, no matter how many t-shirts you buy from them. So it doesn't matter if you don't buy any t-shirts whatsoever, they're still going to charge you that $160 regardless. So if you're talking about your cost, whether you actually buy any t-shirts or not, that $160, to use a math term that we use a lot, that is your initial amount. It doesn't matter if you buy any t-shirts or not. You're charged $160 regardless. But then they charge you $4 for each long sleeve t-shirt. So if I were going to create an equation to represent how much it costs to buy those t-shirts, I could say my cost is equal to my initial amount of $160, so it's $160 no matter what, plus I'm going to be charged, or if I'm in the organization, $4 times the number of t-shirts that I buy. So if this were my equation, my total cost is going to be equal to $160, no matter how many t-shirts I buy, it's going to cost me $160, plus $4 times however many t-shirts I buy. I'm going to put this in more traditional terms using the variables that we normally use in math class when we're talking about a function, because that's really what we're doing here. And I'm going to use x and y. So to use x and y in the terms that we've used them in the past, of course, x is your independent variable and y is your dependent variable. That means that y is the one that depends on x. Okay, because your cost depends on how many t-shirts you buy, I'm going to change this cost into a y because that's traditionally our dependent variable. So my cost, my dependent variable, y, is equal to $160 setup fee plus $4 times my number of t-shirts. So I'm going to use x to represent my number of t-shirts. My number of t-shirts is what affects what my total cost is. That is, my cost depends on my number of t-shirts. So that's why t-shirts is represented by x and cost is represented by y. Now this says write an equation that represents the amount of money the organization will make from selling the long sleeve t-shirts. So I'm going to go back to my situation here. I'm going to change my ink color. The chairman of the fundraising committee suggested selling the long sleeve t-shirts for $8 each. So if we sell them for $8 each, so again, I want an equation, so I want an equal sign that represents the total amount of money the organization will make. So I'm just going to call this money made. So my total amount of money made is going to be based on the fact that we're going to sell t-shirts for $8 each. So the amount of money that I'm going to make is $8 times the number of t-shirts that we sell. Again, the amount of money that we make is going to be equal to $8, because that's how much we're going to charge for each one, times the number of t-shirts that we sell. I'm going to go back and put this equation in terms of x and y. The amount of money that we make depends on how many t-shirts we sell. So that means the amount of money that we make is going to be our y. So y equals 8 times x, because x is the number of t-shirts that we sell. So my two equations, first of all, to represent my cost, y, and notice in both cases, y represents our number of t-shirts. Here, t-shirts represents, whoopsie. Here, the number of t-shirts represents the number of t-shirts that we buy from the company. Here, it represents the number of t-shirts that we sell. Well, it makes sense that we're really talking about the same number of t-shirts, because hopefully, at least if you're in business to make money, like it seems like this group is, however many t-shirts you buy should be the same number that you sell, because what would be the point of buying them if you're not going to actually sell them to make money? So actually, when we're talking about the number of t-shirts that we buy when we represent our costs, that's going to be the same number of t-shirts that we sell here in our second equation. We're really kind of talking about the same t-shirts. Now, before you answer questions 3 and 4, pause the video. Please only use the video to check your answers once you've tried to do it yourself. I'm going to assume that you've paused it and tried it. So number 3 says calculate the cost of 20 long sleeve t-shirts to the organization. So I'm going to look at my equation from my previous question for the cost. Remember that y represents my cost. So y, also known as my cost, equals my $160 that I'm going to pay no matter what, plus $4 times my number of t-shirts, which in this case they tell us is 20. So 4 times 20 is 80, plus 160. So 160 plus 80 means that it's going to cost the organization $240 in order to buy and produce 20 long sleeve t-shirts. Number 4 says calculate the amount of money they will earn from selling 20 t-shirts. So the amount of money that they make is represented by this equation. The amount of money that you make, other known as Y, is equal to $8 times the 20 t-shirts that you're going to sell. So 8 times 20 is 160. So we're starting to see perhaps that if they buy and sell 120 t-shirts, here it would cost them $240. Here, if they sold them, it would make $160. So I wonder if buying them and then selling them for $8 is such a great idea. Pause the video now, try numbers 5 and 6 on your own, and restart the video when you are ready to check. So it says profit is the amount of money made after paying all the bills. So basically after the organization has paid to make those t-shirts, how much they're actually going to get in the end. To calculate the profit the organization will make from selling t-shirts, subtract the cost of the t-shirts from the income or the money earned from sales. So you're supposed to answer the question, calculate the profit the organization will make from selling 20 t-shirts. So it says up here, profit is the amount of money made after paying the bills. To calculate the profit, subtract the cost from the income or the money earned from sales. So subtract, this is your cost up here. So subtract the cost from the money that you make from selling the t-shirts. So that means you would do 160 minus 240, which means you'd actually be at negative $80. So if you took the 160 that you made, then subtracted the 240 that it cost you to get the t-shirts in the first place, you're actually going to be at negative $80 by the time you do all that. So that answers your question for number 6. What does your answer to question number 5 mean? It means that if you follow this plan, that if you sell 20 t-shirts for $8, you'll actually lose $80. I kind of ran out of room here, so I'll just go ahead and say it instead. So again, guys, what it means is if you sell 20 t-shirts for $8, you're actually going to end up losing $80. So that's not a great plan. Hopefully you guys have continued to follow my instructions. I would like you to pause the video now and try numbers 7, 8, 9, and 10 without the video. Then go back, restart the video, and try it on your own in just a moment. So it says calculate the cost of 50 long sleeve t-shirts to the organization. Remember from our previous examples that your cost, otherwise known as Y, is equal to the $160 it's going to cost you regardless, plus $4 for every t-shirt that you buy. So 160 plus 50 t-shirts times $4. So 50 times 4 is 200 plus 160. So the cost of 50 t-shirts would be $360. That's how much it would cost the organization. Then it says calculate the amount of money the organization would earn from selling 50 t-shirts. The amount of money they would make from selling, also our Y, the amount of money, not much of a dollar sign there, but that's okay, would be equal to $8 times the 50 t-shirts. Now this is making a little bit more sense. If they sell 50 t-shirts at $8 a piece, they would make $400. So the profit, remember from our previous example that profit is the amount that it cost you minus the amount that you make. So they made $400 from selling the t-shirts. If we subtract the $360 it cost them to make the t-shirts in the first place, 400 minus 360 means their profit would be $40. So what does your answer to question 9 mean? If you sell 50 t-shirts for $8, you would make a $40 profit. Remember, profit means the amount of money that you make after you've paid for all of your costs. Now you guys pause the video, take a moment to fill in the table, and restart the video when you're ready. So it says complete the table to show the cost and income for different numbers of long sleeve t-shirts. Right here it says expression. Remember that an expression is kind of the same thing as an equation, it just has no equal sign. So when we're saying X number of t-shirts, how much is that going to cost? Well, let's go back and look at our equation for our cost. It's $160 plus $4 times our number of t-shirts. So it's basically going to be this without the equal sign. So X number of t-shirts is going to cost us $160 plus $4 times our number of t-shirts. How much is it going to cost us to buy no t-shirts if we're looking at cost? Well, regardless, it's going to cost $160 no matter how many t-shirts you buy, plus $4 times 0, because it would be $4 times no t-shirts. So 160 plus 0 is just $160. If we buy 10 t-shirts, it's still going to cost us that $160 setup fee plus $4 times 10 t-shirts. So 4 times 10 would be 40 plus 60. It cost us $200. If we buy 200 t-shirts, it would be that $160 setup fee plus 20 times 10. 20 times 10 is 200 plus 160 is 360. 160 plus 35 times 4. Oh, oops, sorry, guys. I meant to do 20 times 4 up here, not 20 times 10. I don't know why I did that. That would still get me 360. Here, if I did 160 plus 35 times 4, that would give me 160 plus 140 for a total of 300. If I did 160 plus 50 times 4, that would be 160 plus 200 for a total of 360. And finally, 160 plus 100 times 4 would be 400 for a total cost of $560. And sorry, move the table around a little bit. As for the income that you're going to make, of course, you make $8 times every t-shirt that you sell. So 8 times 0 means you would make $0. So if you sell no t-shirts, you're going to make no money. If you sell 10 t-shirts, that would be 8 times 10, which means you would make $80. If you sell 20 t-shirts, 8 times 20 is 160. If you sell 35 t-shirts, 35 times 20 gives you 280. If you sell 50 t-shirts, 50 times 8. Gosh, I'm losing it today. I don't know why I did this. 35 times 8, not 35 times 20. Still give you 280. Sorry, guys. 50 times 8 means you'd make 400. And finally, 100 times 8 t-shirts means you would make $800. So now, pause the video and take a moment to read what this is telling you to do. It says create graphs to represent the cost and the income on the coordinate plane below. Actually, before you pause it, let's talk about what the heck all this stuff means here, because I'll bet some of these are some new terms for you. So it says number of t-shirts and then your money. They tell you right here, your number of t-shirts goes here along your x-axis, The amount of money is your y-axis, which makes sense because the amount of money depends on the number of t-shirts. So your number of t-shirts should be your x, your amount of money should be your y. Lower bound, guys, that's just a word that just means the smallest number, which means upper bound means that is your biggest number. And then interval means how much you're going up by. So let me show you what this means. So for the number of t-shirts, your lowest number is going to be a 0. Your biggest number is going to be a 50. And then you're going up by 2.5 every time. So that means for every one of these little tick marks, you're going up by 2.5 every time. Well, that means that every 2 tick marks, because I'm going to make this a little bit easier on you guys, if every 1 little tick mark, that's what the interval means. It means each little tick mark here is going up by 2.5. Well, that means that every 2 tick marks, 2.5 times 2 is 5. So that means that every other, so like these thicker tick marks right here, are each going up by 5 every time. Let me say that again. So this is telling you your lower bound, your smallest number, along your number of t-shirts is going to be a 0. Your biggest number is going to be a 50. Each one of these is going up by, each one of the little tick marks is going up by 2.5 every time. That's what we mean by an interval. So every 2 tick marks is going up by 5 each time. For your money along your y-axis, your smallest number is a 0. Your biggest number is a 400. And it tells you that each of these tick marks, that's what we mean by an interval, is going up by 20 each time. So now you try to pause the video. You try to label your axis according to what I just told you. I'm going to assume you've done what I asked you to do and that you paused the video and that you tried to label it yourself. So you'll see along my x-axis, because each little tick mark represents 2.5, that means that every thick mark, I went up by 5 every time. So you see 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. Along my y-axis, they're each going up by 20, 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, etc. So now we're going to create a graph to represent the cost and the income. And that was kind of the point of making this table back here in your first example. So for example, for your number of t-shirts, let's do the cost first. So if you sell no t-shirts, it's going to cost you $160. So for our cost, and I'm going to put my cost in this purple color right here. So it says create graphs. That means there's going to be more than one graph on this same axis right here. I'm going to start with the cost. So again, look back at my table. If I sell no t-shirts, it's still going to cost me $160. So that means here at no t-shirts, I'm going to put a point right here at $160. Because even if I sell no t-shirts whatsoever, it's still going to cost me $160. Now, let's say that I could go through and say, okay, so no t-shirts would be $160, but then if I sold one t-shirt, that would be my $160 plus the $4 that it would cost me for one t-shirt. So my next point would be $164. So then what I could do is kind of estimate about where one t-shirt is, and then go up and kind of estimate about where 164 is. Notice this scale is kind of a pain in the butt for that because it's going up by so much. So I'm going to do something a little bit easier. I'm going to use the scale that they gave me, and I'm going to jump to how much the cost would be if I got 5 t-shirts. So it would be $160 plus $4 times the 5 t-shirts. So notice every single time I sell 5 t-shirts, or I'm sorry, every single time I buy 5 t-shirts, each t-shirt costs $4. So every single time that I buy 5 t-shirts, that's going to cost me $20. Again, the reason that I picked $5, or sorry guys, not $5. The reason I decided to figure out the cost for 5 t-shirts is because that's how my scale along my x-axis is going up every time. Right now I'm going to see how much would it cost me if I bought 5 t-shirts. Well, if each t-shirt is $4, $4 times those 5 t-shirts means every 5 t-shirts that I buy is going to cost me $20. So it's going to cost me $160 no matter how many t-shirts I buy. Plus, every 5 t-shirts I buy is going to cost me another $20 because $4 times 5 t-shirts is 20 bucks. So if I bought 5 t-shirts, it's going to cost me a total of 60 plus 20, which is 180. So I'm going to put a point right here at 5 t-shirts. Cost me $180. So notice, every single time I buy another 5 t-shirts, it's going to cost me another $20. Because if I do my cost of 160 plus $4 times 10 t-shirts, which is my next number, 4 times 10 is 40. 40 plus 160 is 200. So if I bought 10 t-shirts, it would cost me $200. So right here at 10 t-shirts, I'm going to put a dot at 200. So basically, every time my number of t-shirts goes up by 5, it's going to cost me another $20. So now I'm going to add my, you pause the video, try to put your coordinates where you think the rest of them should go. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully you did that. So 15 t-shirts would cost me 220. 20 t-shirts would cost me 240. Oh, it's not right there. See, 20 t-shirts would cost me 240. 250 or 25. And here we go. First of all, you'll notice that this is linear. The reason it's linear is because I have a constant rate of change. Every single t-shirt costs me another $4. So we've learned about rate of change before. Constant rate of change. Every time I buy another t-shirt, it goes up by $4. So my constant rate of change is $4. That's why, as I graph this function, it's going to be linear. Now, I am not going to connect my coordinates in between my dots. And the reason for that is, if I were to go to the place where you buy t-shirts and I said, okay, I'm going to buy 4.5 t-shirts. Of course, they're not going to let me buy 4.5 t-shirts. So if I actually connect all of my dots straight across here, that would mean that it's possible to have values in between all of my numbers. And even though I can have numbers in between 5 t-shirts and 10 t-shirts, because there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if I connect these dots, that's also saying it's a possibility to have like 5.5 t-shirts, 10.5, etc. So I'm going to leave these dots the way they are. I'm going to choose a different color now to represent the amount of money that I make. So if I sell no t-shirts, if we're selling these t-shirts, remember the t-shirts are being sold for $8 a piece. So the amount of money we make is equal to 8 times the number of t-shirts. Well, if we sell no t-shirts, 8 times 0 would be 0. So at 0 t-shirts, we would make $0. If we sold 5 t-shirts, 8 times 5 would be 40. Of course, if we sold 10 t-shirts, 8 times 10 would be 80. And etc. I'll keep going up in this direction. For every 5 more t-shirts I sell, that's going to give me another $40. So I'm going to keep adding dots. $20, 20 t-shirts, we make 160 at 25. Again, this is a constant rate of change because this dot's actually on top of that one right there, just FYI, right here at the and no, it's not. 35 would be right here. Sorry, not on top of that dot. Sorry guys, it's really easy to make a mistake on these, as you guys can probably tell. So right here at 30, my dot should be at 30 t-shirts would cost me 240. 35 would cost me 280. 40, now this is where it would cost me 320. And finally, so my graph should look something like this, with these two points kind of on top of each other right there. So your cost will be my purple line right here. Your money that you would make would be right here at the green. So now it says use your graph to answer each question and describe your reasoning in terms of the graphs. Determine the number of long sleeve t-shirts for which the cost is greater than the income. So I want to see where it costs more than you would actually make. So if you're looking, here's your cost, which is this purple one. This is the amount of money that you would make in the green. So for all the way up here, your cost is actually higher than the amount of money that you make, which makes sense. If it cost you $160 just to even make no t-shirts, well, you start out $160 behind before you even start selling the t-shirts. Hopefully you're going to sell enough that you'll get that $160 back. But you're going to start off $160 in the hole. So if you look here, the cost is higher than how much you make all the way up until you get right here at 40 t-shirts. So until you sell 40 t-shirts where the graphs hit each other, it's actually going to cost you more than you make. So it says determine the number of long sleeve t-shirts for which the cost is greater than the income. So for any number of t-shirts, up to 40. So until you sell 40 t-shirts right here, the cost is going to be higher than how much money you make. So any number of t-shirts up to 40. Determine the number of long sleeve t-shirts for which the income is greater. Well, once you hit this 40 mark, then the green, the amount of money that you make, actually ends up being higher than your cost. So any number of t-shirts higher than 40. Notice it's not exactly 40, because at exactly 40, the amount of money that you make is not higher than the cost. Okay? Determine when the cost is equal to the income. So when are the two the same? Right there at 40 t-shirts. So again, if you sell 40 t-shirts, your cost and the amount of money that you make are the same. Until you sell 40, it's actually going to cost you more to make the t-shirts. But then after you've sold 40, you're going to make more money than the cost of the t-shirts. Pause the video for a moment, try this out on your own, then restart the video when you're ready. So the point of intersection is the point at which the two lines cross on a coordinate plane. So if we're looking at our graph, the point of intersection is right there. Where the two graphs crossed. When one line represents the cost of an item and the other line represents the income for selling the item, the point of intersection is called the break-even point. So the break-even point means you haven't made any money yet, but you haven't lost any money yet either. If this is something that you guys, any of you that are going to do any kind of business, this is something you're going to do in real life. You're going to see, all right, well, it's going to cost me $160 no matter how many t-shirts I make. Then it's going to cost me a little bit more for each t-shirt. This is how much I'm going to charge for the t-shirts. And you'll look and see right here when you graph them, the point where the two graphs cross, that's when you've made all your money back. Okay, you've taken care of the cost of the t-shirts, so that hopefully now you're going to just start making more money in the future. So the break-even point, so where your cost and your amount of money that you make are the same, would be, so the break-even point is when you've sold 40 t-shirts. What is the profit from t-shirts at the break-even point? Okay, well, you haven't made any profit yet. The break-even point, as I said a second ago, is when you haven't made any money yet, but now you finally haven't lost any money either, because your cost and the amount of money that you make are now the same. What is the cost and the income at the break-even point? So at that point, the cost, so far all the t-shirts have cost you, look over here at cost, $320, and that's also how much you made. So it cost you $320, and you made $320 at that point. So what do the coordinates of the point of intersection mean in terms of the fundraiser? Okay, so that means if you sell 40 t-shirts, you won't make money, but you won't lose money either. So in terms of it being a fundraiser, would it be the best idea if you knew that you were only going to sell 40 t-shirts? If you sell them for $8 a piece, not the best business plan, because you've done all that work and you haven't made any money. Now, at least you haven't lost any money either, but kind of defeats the purpose of having a fundraiser, right? Describe the number of t-shirts that must be sold for a profit to be made. So remember, a profit is for you to actually make money. And again, to determine your profit, so this green represents the amount of money that we make. And the profit won't start being bigger than the cost until after that break-even point of 40. So how much are you going to have to make? How many t-shirts are you going to have to sell to actually make a profit? You'll have to sell more than 40 t-shirts. So 40 is the point where the two break even right there. So at 40 t-shirts, the cost and the amount of money that you make balance out. So to actually make any more money than that, to actually turn a profit, you're going to have to sell more than 40 t-shirts.